What's up, everyone, and welcome to Beer Breakdown, where we dig into the stories behind some of our favorite LA beers with the brewers that brew them. And today I am joined by none other than Jonathan Porter, owner, brewmaster, Smog City Brewing. Welcome to the show. Thanks, man.
Happy to be here, man.
This is kind of a momentous week to be talking to you, just because you guys at Smog are celebrating 9 years this week, right?
Yep. 9 years ago, I think 13th or the 18th. It's hard to keep it straight because every year, like, the date of the party changes. So,
right.
Whatever. We're just gonna party all week this week.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, we're in quarantine, so I mean, might as well live it up for 9 years there.
Yeah. We're trying, man.
This hits us at an interesting time in life right now, but kind of looking back, Smog City, what many consider one of the OGs of the LA beer scene, and in my opinion, kind of pioneered a lot of the flavors and styles that we see more commonly here in LA from LA breweries here today. Back in those days, not as much beer being brewed, and you guys, I feel like, pushing the envelope a little bit more in terms of what people were used to and what they were expecting and kind of where you wanted things to go. So definitely want to tip my hat to you for starting that early when it probably was more challenging to do so.
Yeah, I think we dipped our toes into a lot of different experimental styles pretty early on. I think what happens in a brewer's career is really you start to brew the same things over and over again, like when you get into production, and you just want to like step outside that box a little bit. And for me, that happened, really early on. And that creative freedom is like, it's super exciting. And especially when you get to like shock people's palates and surprise them. And I still think that a lot of things that are familiar to me are just so strange to other people. It's kind of amazing to watch them experience, new flavors or techniques or something for the first time. So yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. Brewers got to have fun.
I think that's important, right? It's 9 years in, like, you got to keep yourself energized and excited, on the day to day.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life. So we try to keep a full range of beers on tap at the brewery for everyone, also for ourselves.
If someone's tuning in and they don't really know much about Smog, I know most people probably do by this point, but there may be some that don't. Like, who are you guys? What is Smog City all about?
Smog City was founded by my wife Lori and I in 2011. We started brewing out of a brew pub in Orange County called Tustin Brewing Company when I was the head brewer there. And we grew into our own facility that opened after 4 years at that brew pub. We opened this. That was 7-8 years ago. 9 total. But anyway, so first couple of years we self-distributed and brewed a few hundred barrels. And then last year we did in our own facility 6,000 barrels. And we've been brewing and distributing a wide variety of beers and selling them from Santa Barbara to San Diego, but mostly in LA County. And we now have 3 retail locations. They're all still open, and we have a 4th one coming soon, hopefully kind of up in the air out in Glendora. So yeah, we got a lot going on.
If you were to sum up your brewing philosophy, like if someone was like, I want to know like what kind of brewery Smog City is, and I think, now that we're years into local craft beer and there's, 100 or so breweries here in the LA area, there's breweries that kind of specialize in one thing and then kind of like put their flag in, like, this is who we are. Is there an easy answer to that question for you?
The thing about specializing for me is that it like comes and goes in waves. And I don't think there's a style we haven't brewed, and we pride ourselves on having something on tap for everyone. I'm not saying we have all styles on tap all the time, but we do have a robust barrel program, so we're making spirit barrel-aged beers. We have a big sour program, so we're making all different ranges of barrel-aged sour beers and quick sour beers and fruited sour beers. And then we've also, we make a ton of IPAs and a lot of lager. So to say that we're the jack of all trades is kind of accurate. And I think that comes with time, and I think that comes with exploration. And I think that we're pretty privileged in the fact that we can make almost anything we want, and people will drink it. Let's just say, even the exotic styles or the stuff that doesn't sell really well mainstream, we still get to make it. So we have this slogan: it's creatively inspired and exceptionally balanced, and I think that kind of defines a lot of our brewing program. So we're trying to think outside the box and put our own spin on beer styles, regardless of what it is. But always our goal is that balance, that drinkability. And so I think that makes our range of styles that we make so approachable.
That kind of rings true to me. Like I get a lot of people asking me for recommendations, a lot of out-of-towners and people visiting the area for the first time. And if I don't know exactly what they want, I tend to have Smog in that list of recommendations, because you can go there and no matter where your palate leans, there's something on the tap list usually that's going to hit. If you're into sour beer, if you're into barrel aged stouts or pilsners or experimental different adjunct sours that you guys do, your wood aged stuff is really cool. So yeah, the versatility I think makes you guys stand out.
We're kind of all over the place, right?
In a good way.
But in a good way, because it's something that we, like I said, we love the variety ourselves, and it makes it more fun.
And so while for this episode we're going to dive into one specific beer, and while in my cellar and in my fridge I have a bunch of different Smog City beers that we could pull from, bourbon OE and some of the barrel aged sour stuff, we're going to go with something a little bit different. Amarilla Gorilla IPA. Tell me about this beer at a high level. Like, what is this beer?
It's just a pretty classical West Coast IPA. It's a little more old school than our flagship, using Amarillo hops as the primary. But our goal here is to really just make a big, beautiful, rounded, kind of juicy, I know that takes on a totally different meaning these days, but juicy, hoppy IPA that's just super drinkable. We've been making this beer since the beginning. And actually, when we first launched Smog into distribution, we had both Hop Tonic and Gorilla as draft options. And we ultimately decided to pull Gorilla from year round because the two were kind of competing with each other. But ever since, I think, 2013, we have released Gorilla as a seasonal. Sometimes it's a little spastic. It'll come out in November. Sometimes it comes out in January sometimes. But now we have a specific, last year we had a specific sort of time frame for it, which was June through August, I think. 4 months, June, July, August, maybe 3 months. And then this year, this wasn't planned to be, but it became our first beer to be put in cans ever with the commissioning of our new canning line. We make a lot of it and it sells like crazy. And we were like, well, this is obviously a good candidate to be putting in 16-ounce cans.
I mean, the name, I'm sure, gets you guys recognition from breweries all over the country that think of this as their bright idea and look it up and see that you guys have been brewing this since 2013.
Yeah. So what's really funny about that is that we actually, early on when there was like the intellectual property wars that people were going after each other for names, we started trademarking things because we thought, hey, we got some really good names here. We want to make sure they're protected. So we went to trademark this one, and the trademark office said you cannot trademark the Spanish word for yellow. And I was like, no, it's not the Spanish word for yellow. It's a play on, and I had to explain to them that it's actually a play on the Amarillo hop, and that, Amarilla is not a word. Right. It's something that we made up to rhyme with gorilla. And they ultimately accepted the application. So there we have it. When
you first brewed it, how's it changed over time? What is this beer all about, like from the evolution standpoint?
Well, one of the most recent, this beer was always meant to be a big, fruity punch in the mouth, not a ton of bitterness. Like I said, like it says, juicy tropical hop bomb, and it's not as new school, like punch you in the face with intensity, but like really well-rounded beer. And so like we were brewing it like up to about 8% ABV, and this year we actually lowered the alcohol content to 7.4 just to make it a little less intoxicating. One thing a lot of people don't know is that this beer is actually made with about 15% rye. Technically it's a rye IPA, but that's not really a style people talk about. And I don't think we ever talked about it as a rye IPA, but it got its name because it has this sort of like well-rounded mid-palate mouthfeel, and that comes from the rye. And what's so cool about that is it's almost like it molds right into the hop character, which is also like round and wide as opposed to like sharp and strong or citrusy or piney. Like it has a lot of those notes, but really what we're going after is like a round, fruity character in this beer.
Yeah, interesting.
And so I think the biggest change is that when we started selecting hops a few years ago, we finally were buying enough where the hop suppliers would let us come up and pick from specific lots. I think that this beer got a lot better because of the Amarillo we were able to select. And then when we were up there this past fall, I have to say that the Amarillo that we selected is the best that I have been able to scratch and sniff in years. Like, wow. It's finally back to its like beautiful glory of like 2008, 2009, like those were the best Amarillo hops. And I just felt like, you know, they're trying to get more oils in the hops, and they're trying to like make all of these hops like more intense. And I feel like Amarillo kind of suffered for a while. But the lots that we got this year were like super full of stone fruit and this beautiful citrus character, and just really well-rounded and back to where I wanted. So we dry hopped all of these batches exclusively with the 2019 Amarillo, and I think that it really pays off in the character of the beer. So
I think one thing that stands out from a presentation perspective is the artwork on this. It's just so super cool. Like, how badass is that gorilla? Like, yeah, it stands out. This is really cool. And who does the artwork for you guys? Is it someone in-house?
So this is a friend of ours named Ryan Cochran. He is a designer. He's worked on all of our core beer labels. So Pils, Squirrel, Coffee, IPA. And this is actually, this is one of the oldest ones, right? So I said Coffee and Squirrel, and then I think this might have been the third label he designed for us. But yeah, this is one of those, this is another label that is character driven. And, you know, for the look of this, we wanted something like, it was kind of inspired a little bit by, I'm totally blanking on it. The steampunk look, right?
Oh yeah.
You've got this like war-torn gorilla, but he's like half bionicle, and he's got this like armor and this crazy eye that's strapped onto him, and this glass eye that's strapped onto him, and he's looking at you, right? And you have to engage with him, and he's dropping, and he's got these like weird little like antique looking planes that are dropping hot bombs. And so yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and it's just a cool character and something else to look at and kind of entertain you while you drink this beer. If you will.
Yeah, and it's great to see this in a can in a more kind of portable and versatile format. Really? And the canning line couldn't have come at a better time for you guys, right?
Yeah, initially we were kind of freaking out because we were like, oh God, we just spent all this money on a canning line. Where are these cans going to go? How are we going to pay for it? You know, under quarantine, we've been doing a lot of to-go sales, and we've launched delivery, and we also have shipping within California now. And so, yeah, it's really helped. You know, it gets people really excited to see some of their old favorites now in cans. But also, we have a lot of new beers coming out in cans. We just launched a year-round wit beer called From LA with Love, which has been draft only since last fall. That one should be awesome for the summer because it's only like 4.8%, super drinkable. But yeah, I mean, canning allows us to be a little more versatile. We don't have to buy six-pack carriers, so kind of like once we get a label, we can put anything we want on cans, which I think is why everybody else loves cans too. That and the canning lines are way more affordable than they used to be. So
you said that you moved up the production of this beer to be the first run of your canning line. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, basically because our first beer in cans was going to be our anniversary beer. Mm-hmm. And once we got the lockdown orders in March, it was like, well, I guess we're canceling our anniversary party. Didn't really feel right to make a special beer for our anniversary. Although we're celebrating being in business, it doesn't feel like a time for celebration right now. Uh-huh. We're trying to walk that line between, you know, like, yay, let's have a party, everything's great, and like, hey, reality is like things are hard right now, and they're hard for a lot of people. They're pretty tough at our business, and so because we were planning on distributing Gorilla in cans anyway, so let's just go to that one, and that'll be our first can release. And again, it's a big fan favorite, man. So people come to the brewery, drink IPAs all day long, but they are always asking like, when is Gorilla coming back? When is Gorilla coming back? And when it comes on, that's all they drink, which is crazy. People just love this beer so much. I mean, I understand why. It's a great beer, but it's just so surprising how much of a following it actually has.
You've got me excited. I think we should open one up and check it out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Do it, man. I'm surprised you still have one. You must have had to like squirrel it away and like hide it.
I'm very patient.
There you go. Yeah. That's it.
Awesome. Love it. I think if I was to describe like what is the ideal appearance of an IPA that you're about to drink, like I don't think you could get much better than this. Like just in terms of the spectrum of yellow gold, it's just kind of right on there.
Yeah. You know, I go back and forth. Sometimes you see IPAs made with like Pilsner malt or like no care malt at all. And you're like, oh, this is super light. And sometimes that's what I want, something super dry and crisp. But I think most of the time, the hop characters are so bold that you need that little bit of sweetness. And I know that one of the reasons the shift to like away from caramel malts is shelf stability, because the components in the caramel malts actually oxidize a little bit faster. So putting your beer in cans and selling it out wider distribution, it's actually, you're going to get a better long-term experience with less caramel malts. But I think you need that sweetness to balance the little bit of bitterness, and it really helps with the mouthfeel for me.
This is a great looking beer. Nice head retention. The carbonation's just, it looks right on point. From a aroma perspective, when you're diving into this, what are you hoping to achieve?
Well, what I really look for in the Amarilla, from the Amarilla, which can be kind of fleeting sometimes, is stone fruit character. Anything related to like apricot, peach, all those weird hybrids. I find it to be kind of fleeting. Sometimes you get it right out of the bright tank. Sometimes it's got to be in the keg for a couple of days. I'm usually drinking this beer on draft, so this is actually a new experience. I haven't had Gorilla from a can that was canned, a week ago. So like I'm expecting it to be different, but I really don't know. This is new for me too.
Yeah, it's big citrus, like just really like juicy orange on the nose for me.
Yeah, tangerine.
Little grassiness to it too, like fresh cut, like dewy morning grass. I really like that too.
Yeah, and it's got where there's still a bunch of Simcoe in this beer too. Always has been. So I'm still getting like a little bit of that tropical character that we find. It's not as strong as like our flagship IPA, but there's definitely some lingering there. I like the citrus, and I feel like it's pretty well rounded. I don't know. It's got a lot of just like fruit. It's light fruit, not dark fruit. It's hard to put a name to it.
Yeah, well, it's really well rounded, and it's really bright too. Like it's just, as you're pouring, it was kind of like filling the air around my face. It was just, it smelled so good. And I mean, in terms of seasonality and when you're brewing this, like I think April, May, like this time of year is like perfect time for a beer like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's give it a taste.
Do it.
Cheers. Man,
you have like, it's kind of fat on your palate, like mid swallow, like right before you swallow, or like after you swallow, it kind of rolls around your tongue. That I think is from the beta glucans in the rye. I want this beer to be meaty. I want it to be like the burly gorilla on the label, Yeah. And I think that the rye does that. And I think that's part of the inspiration for the art too, or the name really. I mean, it's a beast of a beer because it's got those components. It's got that little bit of sweetness. It's got the rye. The oils are very like mouth coating, which I think contributes to the mouthfeel. But then, it doesn't finish too bitter, doesn't finish too dry. It's just got just enough sweetness, but then it's balanced to keep it, nice and drinkable.
Yeah, I think the balance, like you nailed it on the balance here. It's just, not too sweet, not too dry. It's really right there. And full flavored. Like this is not something that you're just going to chug and down really quickly. Like this is something that you're really going to like enjoy going down, but not in a way that's going to make you work. It's just, it is what it is. This is a bold, flavorful, but balanced beer. What do you think the drop down in ABV, did that do anything to the flavor profile at all, do you think?
Well, we had to be really careful about how dry it finishes out because it definitely can affect the mouthfeel. Even ethanol itself contributes texture to a beer. And so we did adjust our mash temperature a little bit to make sure that it didn't dry out. We had to be very careful about hop creep so that the beer didn't get too low in gravity when it finished. So there was some small process adjustments, but overall, I think it's kind of the same. I mean, it wasn't that big of an adjustment. But, at 7.8% on the label, within 0.2, you could be from 7.6 to 8% ABV. And it just can be such a massive beer. And there was really no reason for that. And so my goal was to keep the same character with just a little bit less alcohol content. And it didn't take much to change.
Yeah. It's great. I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad that I held on to these cans. I was like so tempted. Like I could just open one of these and save one for this interview, and I kept both of them because I wanted this like first impression, and I'm really enjoying it, even though it's 9:30 in the morning. Like this is like it feels like the perfect time to drink this beer.
What time is it? Does time even matter anymore?
No, I don't think so. Where can if people want this, where can they get it? Do you still have, is it still available?
Oh yes, absolutely. We have been sending copious quantities of this out to distribution. So you should see it in Trader Joe's pretty soon, Total Wine, Bevmo, Whole Foods. So retail stores, your local bottle shop, can shop. I don't know, I guess it's a can shop now.
Right.
And then, of course, you can get it at any of our tap rooms, Long Beach, both of the ones in Torrance. We're doing expanded delivery now. We have got 4 different zones in LA. So you can order from us online and we'll deliver it to you. If you live somewhere else in California, I mentioned we've got statewide overnight shipping. It's pretty reasonable. So there's a lot of ways to get this beer.
Amazing.
Support your retailers, support your local brewery. And we're making a lot and canning a lot of this beer. It's been a very short and steep learning curve. I'll get this canning line rolling because we're doing like 13,000 can runs. We've done it 3 times already. We had to learn how to make that thing work real fast.
Yeah. Well, the beer's tasting great. So if anybody wants to get their hands on this, you heard the story behind it. Now get some cans and drink it. Porter, take it easy, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Cheers.
Thank you.